Hello folks, and welcome back. And now I'd like to first of all thank all my new subscribers and welcome to TwEx. And we've got some brilliant videos. Now we've had a bit of an absence from YouTube, which it's just down to life and time and things like that. But good news folks, we're going to be back and we've got some brilliant things coming up on the horizon, some really interesting stuff. We've got some post-war, Cold War history, and we've also got some World War II locations coming up soon. But today we're in the garage, because in the TwEx shed, because today we're going to be turning our attention to the TwEx Honda. Okay, and today it's new tyre day folks, new tyre day. Yeah, that's right. So those of you that have been watching the channel, you probably know the TwEx Honda, the yellow bike. Well, it's been running amazingly well for the last few years, which is brilliant. But the inevitable MOT is coming up, folks, and one thing I noticed with it is the tyre. Yeah, that's right, the tyre on the back wheel, it's well overdue for replacement. So first of all, we're going to go and take a look at it, folks. Right then, so here we have the TwEx Honda, and it is up in the air on this paddock stand. Now obviously lots of different motorbikes, different styles, different designs, all that sort of thing. With these kind of like on-off-road motorcycles, you don't usually have a centre stand, and as you can see there, the side stand at the moment is just, suspended off the air. That's all you've got. And for maintenance and things like that, getting the back wheel off the ground safely to be able to remove it without one of these things, a paddock stand, is pretty much impossible. So an essential bit of kit, and I'm sure most people that know anything about motorcycles are well aware of this, and it's a good tool to have. It's just a temporary thing, and it hooks onto the swinging arm on the bike on both sides. You see it there coming down, and we're just going to have a look at this tyre, folks. Now this tyre has been on this particular bike for about 3 years. It's a Heidenau K60 Scout. It's been an amazing tyre, and it's taken me on many thousands of miles on the highways and of course byways and other off-road sort of activities. And one of the things about these tyres is they're not full-on off-road tyres, they're on off-road tyres, so they're dual purpose. They're designed for both off-road and on-road use. And because motorcycles lean over, they corner, they lean from left to right, and most of the time folks, if you're going along slowly, you spend most of your time just sitting bolt upright on or in the middle, and that is reflected by the tyre wear we've got here in the centre of the tread. You notice it's all literally worn right down to what we call the carcass, which is this part of the tyre, folks, the carcass, the casing, and it is well beyond its useful life. And because it's got MOT coming up, and obviously just like a car, tyres have got a minimum tread depth of motorcycles. It's a bit lower than on a motorcycle than it is on a car. On a car it's 1.6 millimeters, and on a motorcycle it's 1 millimeter, which doesn't sound a lot, but I can assure you that unfortunately we've got lots of unused tread here. But like I just said, it's all down to that sitting upright, going in a straight line over many thousands of miles. And like I said, it's 3 years old. It's been on the bike for a while. It's been an absolutely amazing tyre. I can't really fault it, and hopefully the replacement tyre I've got, which is going to be just as good. So one thing I wanted to show you, and I don't know if I can actually find it, but it was something I noticed a while ago, and not too bad with these particular tyres. There we go, we have this bit of a tear in the tread there. I don't know if you can see that. Yeah, I'm not too fussed about it now folks, because it is being replaced, but there we go, a bit of damage there from obviously caught on a stone or something like that, and not really too important because you've got these raised blocks here, you know, and with damage like this, normally if you look at it and you can't see any what you call cords or anything that reveals the inner structure of the tyre, then it's just superficial damage, folks. But so moving around the rest of the tyre, it's well overdue for replacement, and that's exactly what we're going to be doing next. So first thing we'll do is pop the back wheel off, and obviously this model of bike is a Honda SLR 650. It's quite a basic sort of you know, setup with removal of the back wheel. We've got the main axle nut there, which we've got to remove, and we've got to loosen that, slide out the axle, and then the rest of it will be quite straightforward to get the back wheel off. So let's get some tools and let's get stuck in. Right then, folks, so we have the mighty tool chest, and we're going to be getting, first of all, a spanner to undo the axle nut. We need this one at the back, 24mm nut, and we know that from from memory and experience. And right, so we're going to use that. We're also going to need, just slide the new tyre out the way, we're also going to need a suitable, where is it gone here, a mallet, folks, because we're going to have to tap the axle through the other side until it comes out. And experience also tells me as well we're going to be needing a pair of pliers. Yeah, pair of pliers. So let's go and do the first step then, folks. Right then, folks, so we've got the tools, we've got everything we need. I'm just going to put you down there, and hopefully we're going to undo this large axle nut. I'm not sure if you'll be able to see that, bit of an awkward angle. The camera is on the floor, a bit tight there, but I'm going to undo this. And obviously it's a great thing for anyone who owns a motorcycle to be able to do your own maintenance and do your own jobs at things as when required, because you can actually save a huge amount of money on labour fees when you go to any motorcycle shop or garage. Then obviously, you know, now I've been in the motor trade for a very long time, folks. I'm not in it at the moment, but I actually have learned through many years of actually doing these sort of jobs, and you know, it's satisfying to myself to be able to do these things, you know, because obviously my motorbike is mine, and I like to be able to do as much as I possibly can without having to get somebody else to help. So now sometimes we might actually need being a bit stubborn, which is a bit, no, I'm using a rubber mallet, folks, because if I use a metal hammer on that axle, then there's a real risk of damaging the threads on the end of the axle, which is not good, because it means I wouldn't be able to put the nut back on afterwards, and that would be a bit of a pain. So perseverance. But you might need to resort to something a bit heavier. Is it moving? No, it's not moving. Okay, we're going to have to bring in the big guns. Just for good measure, I'm going to give it a bit of a squirt, try and ease things, some penetrating fluid, folks, just so I can hopefully make it show a bit of willing. So notice I've put the nut on the end of the axle again, because I don't want to damage the thread. Hopefully it shouldn't require much more with the assistance of my mate Sid here. goes. Sid the persuader. And if we notice, well, on this side, you can just about see the axle nut, the axle itself starting to emerge. Back to the rubber mallet now, folks. And it's usually down to corrosion, so what we'll do, we'll put some more penetrating fluid on the axle, and hopefully that will soak in and persuade the axle to fully withdraw. We've got to fully withdraw the axle out of the hub, and then hopefully then the wheel should just drop down. Right, so we'll be back in a moment. Right then, folks, so you can see we've made some progress, and the reason it's been a bit difficult getting the axle out is, if you look at the axle, you can see you've got corrosion, and one of the ways to prevent that is to grease the axle. Now obviously the last time I did take the wheel off and put it back on, I did grease the axle. The trouble is damp and moisture, and also it was a very long time ago. So we are winning, and we'll get it out, and then hopefully the wheel should drop out nice and easily. Right, so there we go, folks, and closer to victory than we were 5 minutes ago. And just gonna put it there and hopefully grab these pliers, give the axle a nice tweak, and there it comes. Out it comes, and it's a bit mucky, but I've sprayed some penetrating oil on it, and you can see there you've got corrosion. That's the reason why it was a bit reluctant. So I'm going to make sure before I put it back together, I'm going to grease the shaft, folks. Yes, grease the shaft very well, and hopefully we should be spot on. So we're going to take the back wheel out now, and before we do, there's a few things we've got to do. First of all is, now the axle is not supporting the weight of the wheel anymore, I'm going to get some gloves in a minute, and we're going to actually manually remove the chain from the sprocket and rest it on the swing arm, and then on the other side carefully guide the brake caliper off the disc, and then we'll have a couple of spacers either side, and we should be able to roll the wheel out nice and easily. Back in the mo. Right then, folks, so as you can see there, the rear wheel is ready to come out, and got to remember to keep these spacers safe. Obviously that one slots in there, and without those the wheel would be sliding to and fro on the axle, causing things to collide at movement, which isn't good. But I've unhooked the chain, I've got it off the sprocket, and on the other side I've removed the from the disc there, and the disc pads are all good, so no excessive wear on them, so they're good to go. And while I'm here, because it will fall out anyway, I'm going to remove the other wheel spacer. Yeah, the other wheel spacer, folks. Put that down safely, and then pop you over here, and then we're ready to withdraw. Whoops, crikey, things going on with that. Then we're ready to withdraw the back wheel. So let's do it. So just being a bit mindful of the caliper, which I'm just going to move out the way, and there we have it. One back wheel with one rather knackered back tyre. So got to sort out my hands and stuff a minute, and then the next stage is then we're going to let the air out the tyre so it goes completely flat, and we're going to try and break what we call the beads of the tyre. So we can't do that until the air is all removed from the tyre. So back in a mo. Right then, folks, so we've got the back wheel off, and to make up a bit more space in here, then I've brought the wheel outside and I've laid it down on this rug. Oh, it's like a blanket, old blanket, just to stop any damage from the rough concrete scratching up the brake disc. And first thing to do is to remove the dust cap. The dust cap just keeps debris and dirt from the valve of the tyre. And then I'm going to use this tool, which I've had for many years, It's a valve key. It's shaped in a certain way to interact with the valve on the inside of the stem here. So I'm unscrewing it, folks. I can start to hear air escaping already. Just gonna swap hands a moment. So it's nearly out. Oh, there we go. So this is what we've unscrewed from. This is the valve core. It's like a little valve, allows air in but nothing to come out unless you remove it. So I'm going to put that nice and safe there because we're going to require that again. And the dust cap will go with it. And also as well, you notice on this little valve stem there is a nut. It's a securing nut to allow the to stop the tube from moving around inside the tyre, basically, folks. But it's important with these things is not to over tighten them. So before I do anything else in a moment, I'm going to loosen that little nut, and then we're ready to try and separate the tyre casing from the wheel rim, which can be a bit challenging, but we'll see how we go. So back in a moment. Right, so had a bit of problems trying to break the bead. It's not unheard of. Obviously the tyre's been on there for a very long time, lots of moisture and stuff around the wheel rim, and I've had to resort to the good old-fashioned bench vise, which I've done using these two aluminium offcuts of metal, and I've put those inside the jaws of the vise, and on this side of the vise I've done the same thing, and as you can see there now, the bead of the tyre is broken, so it should make it a lot easier now. And I'm going to release the wheel out of the vise, and we're going to attempt to have a go at the other side. Normally when it happens is when it's tough to do, one side breaks first and then the other side it breaks fairly easily in comparison. So back in a mo. And folks, so I've put the wheel back on the floor, and all I have to do now is, if I step on the side part of the tyre there, you can see that the bead of the tyre has separated from the wheel, which is amazing and essential. In order for us to allow us to remove the tyre, it's essential. And what I've got to do now is flip the wheel over and try and do the same on the other side. So pop me there for a moment, flipping the wheel over, and it's going to be a bit harder. Now I think because of the rear sprocket, I'm going to have to call for some lumps of wood here just to support the wheel, so I'll get those. So we've got some lumps of wood, which I'm going to try put one under this side of the wheel and this one under the other side of the wheel, just to try and stabilise it a bit, and then hopefully, taking a bit of a risk, show you what I'm doing, put you up there on top of the top box, then hopefully you should be able to see that, folks. I'm going to do a bit of a funny dance here. I'm going to stand on the wheel, hold on to the shed doors, and try and persuade the other bead to break. Oh, I can hear the noises of it separating, which is always good news. But I think it's actually going to require possibly a bit of hammer work. So, or what can help as well sometimes is a nice tyre lever. So thanks to Sid the sledge, we've had some results. We've broken both the beads on both sides of the wheel, which is great, which means now it's time to carefully remove the nut from the valve stem, and then I'm going to try and get the tyre off the rim. So have a quick look at it a moment, put the hammer down, and obviously if you notice there, didn't fully remove the nut from the valve stem. That is because I didn't want it to disappear inside, folks. Then folks, so now these off-road style tyres, especially anything over a sort of like a 90 width, is they're usually quite difficult to do, and not expecting it's not that I wasn't expecting that, folks. So behind the scenes I persevered, and here's the old tyre removed. So it's possible to do with levers, and you know, a bit of messing around, bit of fanning about, shall we say. But what I'll do in a minute, I'm going to prepare the wheel, because obviously the wheel needs a bit of a clean, and then what we'll do, hopefully then we'll go through the stages of fitting the new tyre. So back in a moment. Okay, so I'm going to show you the wheel, and obviously this is pretty important, folks, because we want to make sure that the wheel is in good condition and clear of any debris sticking to the rim, because it's going to impede the seating of the bead of the new tyre. So time to get busy with a wire brush. Not much to see with this, really, a bit boring, so be back in a mo. So I'm going in with the wire brush, just giving this wheel rim a clean, just to make sure it's nice and free and clean for the new tyre. It's also important to check the condition of what they call the rim tape, which is like a rubber strip going around the centre of the wheel well, and what it does, it covers up the spokes, where the spokes come into the wheel rim, to stop them from you know, causing any problems to the inner tube. And you don't want any chafing or any risk of puncture. So the wheel tape's actually in quite good condition, and I'm not too fussed about it, to be honest. So rather than disturb it, I'm just gonna give it a wipe clean in a minute, and all should be good. So going around with the wire brush, cleaning up the wheel rim, getting rid of any corrosion. Obviously you can't help moisture, folks, it gets in everywhere, and the only thing you can do is just to remove any corrosion or anything that's going to cause a problem to the inner tube or the new tyre. So that's what we're doing. It takes a while, but it's worth doing, and something I've done with every single tyre I've ever fitted. And if you've got a tubeless tyre, folks, it's even more important, because it relies on a clean seal to the rim, because most car tyres are tubeless, and the types of wheel that don't have an inner tube are usually, any spoke wheel normally has an inner tube. There are a few exceptions these days with some of the new BMW bikes, because they have what's called like a cross-laced wheel, where the spokes don't actually penetrate the wheel rim. But on this instance, this is a good old-fashioned tube type wheel and tyre. So just going to keep giving it a clean, and doing the best I can. So when this is done, we'll be right back. Right then, folks, so we have our nice wheel rim. It's all clean and clear of corrosion, which is good, and the rim tape is in good condition, which is important to note. And very shortly we are ready to fit our new tyre, folks. So let's get things in position, and we'll go through it. Right then, folks, so let's check out our new tyre. Got Mitas E07 now, and The size is a 120/90/17, which is exactly right. And with this tyre in particular, now not all bike tyres are what we call directional. I don't know if you can see that, but there is an arrow on the side of the tyre there. That is telling us that if it's going on the back wheel, which, well, it is, this is designed for as a rear tyre, then the tread pattern needs to be pointing in the direction of drive, which is something we want to pay attention to, not get wrong, because if we do get it wrong, it means we have to take the tyre off and start again, and we don't really want to do that. So first of all, I'm going to remove the label. Bit of sellotape here, just holding it together. So I'm going to remove the label, because that's not going to do us. That's not going to be much help, folks. That's in the way. And bit of a tricky paper label. Now, I was actually very lucky with this tyre, folks. I did get it for a tremendously discounted price, which is brilliant. And thanks to a nice chap via the use of social media, I was able to get it for, well, just over half price, folks. So well happy with that. So right, so now one of the things about fitting a new tyre is something we have to be careful of, folks, is now what can happen with the inner tube is rubber usually interacts with rubber, it sticks. Sometimes it can stick to itself. When the inner tube, obviously being made out of rubber, is inside the new tyre, then there is a possibility of the tyre, the inner tube, actually sticking to the walls of the new tyre, which could cause a puncture. Obviously, to prevent that, there's a very simple solution. Now, in the tyre trade, it is used as chalk, but for us here at home in our DIY workshop, then we're going to be using good old-fashioned baby powder, which is basically chalk, folks. So what we're going to be doing, first of all, we're going to be filling the new tyre with a good old dusting of chalk, and then coating the inner tube with the same, and a good old dusting of chalk. And then we're going to get the first bead of the new tyre onto the wheel rim, and that should be quite an easy job, because what we're going to do, folks, I'll show you now, is first of all we're going to establish, put you back up here again, we're going to establish the direction of drive, folks. Now obviously on the bike here, the brake disc is mounted on the right hand side and the sprocket is mounted on the left. So according to the arrow on the tyre, then the tread pattern, almost like an arrow pattern, needs to be that part, that arrow needs to be facing forward. So what we'll do then, bearing in mind that the brake disc is on the left, we're going to be fitting the tyre straight onto the rim that way, and then that way everything should be right. But before we do, we're going to give the tyre a good old dusting. So plenty of that inside the tyre. Don't know if you can see me. In fact, I'll move the camera a bit. Put you down on the floor, folks. Probably the best way. So yeah, I'm putting the chalk, the talc, inside the new tyre, turning it around. Sounds a bit mad and a bit crazy, but it does help, and it is what is required, folks. Obviously I haven't committed any offences from the bathroom. This talcum powder was bought specially for this, so we want a nice layer. In fact, get my hands in there, smear it all around, because I really do want this coating of chalk everywhere, which is brilliant. And that will mean hopefully then we have a nice stick resistant layer of talc inside the tyre to prevent the tyre from sticking to the inner tube, which is what we want, folks. So the next stage is then moving the tyre slightly. We're going to lubricate the bead of the tyre. Now obviously in the tyre garages they use a special formulated tyre soap to make the rubber slippery, so it just goes on. think I've got talcum powder on the lens there. Let's just clean that off the way. So yeah, so because I don't have any proper tyre soap, what I'm going to use, if I can reach it at the moment, is, now a lot of people say use washing up liquid. Well, I don't really like washing up liquid for the simple reason, for use with machinery, washing up liquid contains salt. But what I am going to use in its place is, I've got a little pot here and a brush of some good old-fashioned car wash shampoo, which is soapy and it is very slippery, folks, and it's also water soluble, so it means a couple of rides in the rain or the next time the bike's washed, then there shouldn't be any trace of it. So just going to do a quick check to make sure that the direction of fitment is going to be this side. Yeah, so it's this bead of the tyre that I'm going to slop with the soap. I'm going to go all the way round, making it nice and slippery, because the slipperier it is, the easier it should be to put it on the wheel, to mount it on the wheel. Right, so that's ready to go. I'm going to move that over there so I don't spill it, and in a moment we're going to try and mount this onto the wheel rim. And if I move you a little bit closer, hopefully you should get a better, move the talc out of the way, you should get a better picture of it. So disc is on the right, sprocket's on the left, and that means that the tyre will be facing the direction right. So I'm offering it up to the tyre, and hopefully it should be nice and slippery to go on. Using a tyre lever, just get it to fit nice and snug first of all. A fair old bit of manual manipulation is required as well. And the use of some tyre levers, they're important, folks. We need a good set of tyre levers for doing tyre fitting. So here we go. I think what I'm going to do is hook this lever over the rim so I can get that to go on nice and easy. And now obviously this is the first time I've actually ever filmed myself changing a tyre or replacing a tyre, so obviously it's a little bit conscious of it in my mind for some reason. It's a bit like somebody watching me over my shoulder, but we just have to soldier on, persevere, and it takes however long it takes, because we really don't want to risk damaging the tyre, the new tyre. So it's worth taking your time, or for some people, if you're not sure about it, then ask a friend to help you is probably the best thing to do. Or if you want to do it yourself, then two people are always helpful rather than one. But so you probably can't see very much there, but if I move you there, you get a bit better picture of it. So the first bead of the tyre is just about on the rim, and the last bit is always the trickiest bit, but we're almost there. We're not giving up, folks, so I'll be back in a moment. Right, folks, so I've given the tube an extra dusting of talc, I made a right mess of myself, as you can see there. Look, I've made a right mess of myself. I'm covered in talc, but it doesn't matter because I don't want the inner tube to stick to the tyre, which is can happen. So we want to reduce that risk as much as we can. And I've got the first bead mounted on the tyre, on the rim, sorry. And a bit of a difficult job now. I've got to actually put the tube inside the tyre and feed the valve stem through the hole in the wheel rim, which is easier said than done and might be a bit tricky. So I think what I'll do, I'll come back when I've done it. Just a quick note as well, I've actually put some air in the tube because I never fit inner tubes inside tyres if they're flat, folks, because that can cause all kinds of twists and problems. So if the tube has got some air, not too much, then obviously about, definitely less than 5 psi, then that keeps the tube nicely formed inside the tyre and hopefully eliminates the risk of any contact with levers or anything like that. And hopefully it's still floppy enough to allow me to stuff it inside the tyre in a moment. So I'll be back when I've done it. Right folks, back to it then. So I've managed to stuff the inner tube inside the tyre. The tyre is mounted on the first bead of the rim, and I've put the tube inside, and I've actually captured the valve stem and put the little nut on halfway down just to secure it, because if you fitted a lot of these tyres, there really is nothing more annoying than putting the second bead on and finding that the valve stem disappears inside the tyre, because then you have to start all over again. And there's an increased risk of damaging the inner tube, which leads to a puncture, and we don't want that. So, right then, so what I'm going to do now, I'm going to turn the tyre on the rim slightly, just to make sure everything's nice and free, and then I'm going to soap up the second bead, and the final stage of the process for fitting the tyre is popping the second bead onto the rim, which isn't always easy, folks, but we're going to give it a bloody good go, because we come this far. So right, I'll plonk you down on the floor there and carry on with what we're going to do. So just going to give this a bit of manipulation, not a massive amount, but yeah, so there we are. Now I always find usually the most satisfying moment is when the second bead pops on, because then it means it's fun time, folks, and you can actually look forward to putting some air in the tyre and blowing it up, popping it back on the bike, which ultimately leads to more rides and more videos and more fun. So right, let us carry on. So I've got my car wash soap there, which is very, very good. I'm going to make sure I put lots of it on the bead of the tyre, in it goes with that. I'm going to soak it up really good, because we want it to be as slippery as possible. It's a very blustery day today, folks, and I did another video this morning where I took Charlie the dog up to the flat load, and possibly I have an idea for this evening. So all depending, we can get this little lot wrapped up and back on the bike and spinning again. So right, so I'm going to do this off camera because I wouldn't want to offend anybody with swear words, but be right back. Right folks, so we're nearing the end of our tyre fitting ordeal, or a bit of a chore, but I'm going to pop you down and hopefully we can catch the final moments. On film. I'm going to stomp on this a minute. We are so close, folks. and you can see how close we are. Just got that little bit of bead to go over the rim when we're there. So let's do it. In fact, I think I'm going to be a bit of a cheat and maybe hopefully put a bit more slobber on there. And it's nearly there. We're going to witness the final moments. There we go, folks. And yeah, well, these off-road tyres are always a bit of a swine to do, but you can actually do them yourself if you know what you're doing, and hopefully I do. And to test that theory in a moment, we're going to fill it with air and see how it goes, how it seats on the rim. Right, hopefully everything's in place. I'm going to wind that nut down a little bit more now so the valve is fully sticking out. I'm not going to tighten it, folks, I'm just going to wind it out. And final moment. Right, hopefully. I'm going to put this on. I'm going to blow it up to 30 psi just so I can seat it. Right, so here we have my wonderful little cordless Chinese tyre inflator. Should be perfect for this. So on it goes, on the valve, and we're going to pull the trigger. See what happens. Right, now that's not the operating temperature, pressure, folks. That is just to seat the bead on the rim, and we need to make sure that the tyre is correctly seated on the rim, and as you can see there, in this case it isn't, which means we'll just slightly up the pressure slightly, and that should pop out nice and easily. Hopefully it will. So well, the first thing we do is just to make sure what the maximum operating pressure is. Yeah, 42 psi. Yeah, so we won't go above 42 psi. That's what the pressure is. We'll do it for 36. Then, so I misplaced my valve key, so I had to get another one, and because we put 40 psi in it, that's way more pressure than what we normally run in the tyre. And of course, for an off-road bike, on off-road, you want a bit of a spring in the tyre, and the normal pressure for this running of the bike is 22 psi. So that's what I'm going to set it to. I'm going to set the gauge to 22 psi, 28, 27, 26, 25, 24, 22, 22. In fact, yeah, I'll go 22.5, I think. And we'll put that on there. And we've got 5.5 psi in there at the moment because I let it right down flat. .5, and we'll disconnect that then, and what we'll do, we'll tighten up the valve, just nip it with fingers, in fact maybe even just a slight little, nothing much, just a tweak, that's all we need to do. And there we have our newly fitted tyre, and there's only one more test to do, folks, and what I normally do is spit on my fingers, but in this case I'm not going to do that because it's a bit gross. I'm just going to double check the tightness of the valve to make sure I've tightened it fully and it's not loose. Yep, that's nice and tweaked. And I'm going to put a blob of this over there because it will indicate whether we have any leakage of air from the valve. That's a super up close shot there, obviously. So lots of tyre technicians and stuff usually do this, spitting on the fingers. Well, that's a bit gross, so I've put a bit of car wash soap on there, and as we can see there, it's nice and bubble free. So normally if you've got a leaky valve, whatever, you can usually see that liquid there, the car wash soap would start bubbling up, and it would give you an indication that there is some kind of problem with the valve, or you know, but in this case we're okay. So the next thing, the last thing to do with the wheel now, I'm going to replace the dust cap, and there we are, folks. So our new Mitas E07 is mounted on the wheel, ready to go back onto the bike. So there's the bike, and that's it. So I won't bore you with the details of putting the wheel back on the bike, because I think we've dragged this out enough now. But there we go, folks. So DIY home fitted tyres are a thing, and thanks for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it, and hopefully the next time you see us out on the road, we'll be out with Adventure One and making the most of our new tyre. So thank you very much. I will also, just before I go, I will also try and put some comments about the particular performance of this tyre as well. I mean, obviously I was running tyres that were called Hide and Out, and as you can probably see, new and the old, there's not really that much difference in the tread pattern. They're both the same type of tyres, 50-50 on off-road, and sort of 50% on road, 50% off-road. And obviously, you know, I couldn't get another one of these because it was just heinously expensive, folks. These Hide and Out tyres, 3 years ago they were quite a cheap tyre. Now they are like it's so expensive it's ridiculous. So I had a good old bargain with this Mitas E07 anyway, so I'm going to be trying it out over the coming few months, folks. So thanks for watching, and please like and subscribe and tell your friends. Cheers.